would land at the place where this church is, and then it would be shot at exactly 1:15. And it actually came to happen. That would probably convince you that I have some power to see the future, correct? What the Bible is doing, what Paul starts out by saying, he's saying, look, the prophets have already told us that these things were going to happen. The prophets before us, before Paul was even talking, he's saying, look, Corinth, you doubt? Here's one way that will help you not doubt. Remember these ancient writings that we read all the time? They're telling us about Jesus. They're telling us. Does someone have that Psalms? It is Psalms 2:7. Go ahead.
I will declare the decree the Lord has said to me. You are my son, today I have begotten you.
Okay? And that's at the cross. And the reality is that there's so many prophecies, there's over 400 prophecies in the Old Testament telling about this man Jesus, the Messiah, the one that even today Jews are waiting for. They think that they're waiting for this Messiah that was prophesied. And this is one way that we as Christians, we can have the hope that what is going on is true. What Jesus is telling us is true. What Paul is telling us here is true. So we have the Old Testament prophets. We have the testimony of the empty tomb. I don't know if you've ever studied the empty tomb, but it's a pretty amazing thing. The soldiers that were guarding the empty tomb, the soldiers were Roman centurion soldiers. These soldiers were the top of the line. And many of the soldiers we have today in the Navy SEALs, many of the soldiers that we use, the techniques they use today are a lot of the things have been brought down from this Roman Empire, this Roman legions, these Roman soldiers. If you were to leave your post as a Roman soldier, if you were to fall asleep at post as a Roman soldier, you would be burned alive in your own clothes. Okay, it was a severe punishment. All right. If you were to run away or be afraid as a Roman soldier, not only would they kill you, but they would kill your family also, your wife, your children. Okay? They very much did not want the soldiers to sleep on duty, to run away, or to do anything in any way that would compromise what the Roman Empire was about. So here you have this tomb with this huge stone in front of it. Some people have estimated that tomb stone may have weighed 2 tons. Okay? They've rolled it over. They've put the seal, the Roman seal, on the tomb, which means you put the seal on it. If you break the seal, if you go near the seal and you desecrate the seal, you mess up with the seal, you're dead. And it's probably some other people. Okay? It's a huge punishment. But what happens on the 3rd day? Mary and the 2 Marys go to the tomb, and the stone is the Greek word used. It's not rolled away; it's thrown away. It's like a distance. A 2-ton stone is like totally away. The guards are gone, and the 2 Marys go like, "What is going on here? This is crazy, right?" Then they go in and they see the angels, and they say, "Why are you looking for the living amongst the dead?" Right? Do you remember this story? Well, the point is that Paul wants us to remember that that's not a very easy thing to be faked. Okay? Jesus would have had to pretend to die, allow the people to wrap him up in linen, put the spices on him. He would have had been on the cross. He would have had a spear go through his side, somehow allowing the water to go out, which means you're dead. He would have had to endure the cross, and then at some time, without that the 3 nights he was in the tomb, he would have had to have gotten up. He would have had to taken all that shroud, that linen off of him. He would have had to push a 2-ton stone as far, like a good distance away, beat up the Roman guards that were there to watch him, and then run away, and then clean himself up and show himself to his disciples. That's a pretty big feat, don't you think? That's something that's pretty amazing. I don't think that would be humanly possible. That you'd have to have more belief in that than to actually believe that Jesus rose from the dead. And so what Paul's saying is, here's another reason you can trust what is being said. Because do you guys realize that if the Romans would have had the body, if they would have just been able to go and show the body to everyone and say, you think Jesus is alive? He's right here. He's dead. He's still dead. He's not alive. They do that, we don't have a building right now. We're not here right now. Christianity is dead. Okay? That's why the Roman soldiers ran to the Jews and they're like, what can we do? How can we make this a conspiracy out of this? And the point is Paul was saying, if this is fake, then all the Jews or all the Romans have to do is show Jesus' body. If they show his body, then this is all over. They don't have to worry about it. This great uprising, this Christian movement is dead. And the Corinth church, they would have understood this. They would have been like, that makes sense. That's another proof that maybe what Paul is saying is true, and we can rely on it. Another testimony is that of the application of the apostles. Does anyone know what apostle is? Anyone know what apostle is? Yes. Okay? It's not just there's disciples and then there's apostles. What is an apostle? Yes. Okay, teachers. There's some key aspects of an apostle. An apostle has to see Jesus, pretty much. He has to be someone that was in the relationship with Jesus. So Paul is an apostle, the disciples are apostles. They had a relationship with Jesus. They all saw Jesus. Paul saw him on the road to Emmaus when his eyes were blind, Damascus, his eyes were blind. But they all saw Jesus. This is a huge important point, because all of these men, all the 12 disciples, they were killed for their faith. They were killed because they believed that what Jesus did was true. An interesting thing I found when I was looking all this up is during the Civil War, if you were to do anything that would dishonor your side, they had ways of making you feel horrible about it. So there was no good reason to retreat or to give up. They wanted you to stay with the troops. And it was interesting to learn that in the book, The Amazing Civil War, a common punishment was to be branded. Okay? So here are some of the brandings they used. And think about this. The disciples gave up everything. They knew that they were going to be, seen with these kind of brands on them. Okay? But during the Civil War, if you were to desert, you'd get a huge D branded on your skin. You'd walk around, people would know you were a deserter because you would have a huge D branded into your skin. Thieves might have an F, or actually they would have a T. Cowards would have a C. And if you were just a complete joke, if you couldn't fight, they put a W on you. They branded W on you, that meant you were worthless. Okay? The disciples had to make a decision, just like these guys in the Civil War. They knew if they ran away, they were going to get this branded on them, and everyone would know from that point on that, hey, this guy is worthless. He has a W branded onto his skin, onto his body. The disciples knew if they followed Christ, they would have that C branded on them. People would hate them because they tried to say that this Jesus really resurrected, that he was dead and then he rose from the grave. And the point is that these people lost their lives. These disciples, these people that knew Jesus the best, lost their lives because they believed in what they were doing. And not only did he show himself to the disciples, the apostles, he also showed himself to 500 people. And this is important for the Corinthians because the Corinthians might know some of these 500 people. When Paul's writing this letter to the Corinthians, it's not that far past. It's about 20, 30 years after the events of Jesus. These 500 people might still be around, might still be saying, yeah, I saw Jesus. This is another proof. If you were to take this to court, you have 500 witnesses that Jesus is still alive, that he's still walking on planet Earth. And so, that's another way we can look past what we can say, this is something we can trust, this is something we can believe in. Another thing that we can use is the skeptics. See, James was one of the biggest skeptics in the Bible. Him and Thomas. They were skeptical that Jesus really resurrected, that he really came back to life. So Jesus went out of his way to go to James and go to Thomas and say, look, here's my scars. I'm real. This is real. And in their lives, those skeptics, when they saw Jesus, they were both killed for their faith. Their lives